Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Today in this video I'll be sharing what are the questions that are asked in technical round of CTS interview. So already I made a video on whole interview process of Cognizant, so I'll pin the link in the comments. So in this video let's discuss particularly the technical round interview. So what are all the questions I faced in the interview and how much time the interview went on and how was the experience, all I will discuss in this video. So the role I opted was advanced Python. So at the time of applying I opted this role, and already I discussed in old video that I applied for Genc next role, and but I got the interview call for Genc elevate role. So that means based on the performance in the test, so they gave this interview. So for the role of Genc elevate, the total time for interview was around 40 minutes. So it was bit lengthy, so it will be based on interviewer. So for me this particular interviewer asked many questions, so let's get into the topic. So as usual, first question was tell me about yourself. So when you face this question, so explain about yourself, so be brief about yourself, tell them your name, where are you from, and any special thing about your place, and tell them about your education. So don't tell everything from school time, so tell about just your BTech, what stream and why did you choose the stream and all those things. And then he asked to tell about my projects. So I told what are all the projects I have mentioned in my resume. I explained each and every detail of them. So if you have any good projects, whether it is a major project or any minor project, so if you have completed your major project at the time of interview, then you can explain about it, or if you have any good projects, you can explain about them. So explain each and every functionality of the project, what technologies have you used on, so what are all the projects you mentioned in your resume, so be thorough about them. So his next question was, he asked to explain about one of my project that I mentioned in previous questions. So your next question will be based on your previous answer, so be careful while particularly answering the questions. So here he asked to explain my data mining project. It is one of my project I mentioned in the previous question, so he asked about that project. And coming to the next question, again he asked questions related to project. Whatever I explained, he asked questions on it, so be thorough about your project, so know each and every detail of your project and how it functions, all the details. So he asked a question like, how will you manage missing data? So again it is related to data mining, the question related to my project itself, so he asked this question. And then coming to the next question, so he asked what is data pre-processing. Again it is related to data mining, and again it is related to my project. So he asked these questions because he asked about my data mining project. So once again I am saying that whatever you mention in your resume, so don't bluff there, so mention what are the things that you know. And next question was, what database will you use to store the data? So again it was related to data mining, and again it was related to my project itself. So how will you store the data, all those things he asked about my project, where you have stored that data, all those things. And then he moved to another topic, SQL. So he asked a few questions on SQL. So firstly he asked what is index and what are the types of indexes. So I am from computer science background, and he asked about all the subjects that I have studied. So and then he asked to explain about DBMS subject, like what you have learned in DBMS, and he again asked some questions on that DBMS particularly. So know all the basics of your subjects, what have you studied in your BTech. So he asked me like types of databases, and then he gave a scenario, and he asked to write an SQL query to it. So basically he showed few tables, and what are the primary keys and what are the foreign keys in that, he explained all those things, and he wants to get the data from two tables. So I have to write the query, I have to use joins and all those things, so you have to be good in SQL also. And then he asked to what is subquery and write example to it. So I explained about subquery, and then I gave example was retrieving second highest salary. So and then he again asked to write that query, how will you retrieve second highest salary. So he asked to open an editor and write a query to it. So totally 2 queries on SQL. I wrote 2 queries on SQL, and then he moved to the next topic, that is Python. So I mentioned in my resume that I was good in Python programming language. So he moved to Python. As I said, everything was related to your resume. So be confident on what are the things you mentioned in your resume, and only mention the things that you know very well in particularly. So coming to this Python, he already have few code snippets with him, very short codes, 4 or 5 lines was there, and he asked to predict those outputs. So without actually running the code, you have to predict the output just by looking the screen. Whatever he showed, you have to predict the output. So it was somewhat difficult, it will take some time. So there are loops in that, and you have to predict the output for that. So there are totally 3 to 4 questions on like this. He showed me 3 to 4 code snippets, and he's not giving much time for them. I was waiting, I was calculating in my mind itself without running actually, but he was not giving enough time. So you have to be very quick. So learn from now only, daily practice predicting the output. And then he coming to the next question, he gave a stack. So again he gave a scenario, he gave a stack and what are the elements in it. He explained all those things, and then he asked a particular operation, popping and storing in stack, again popping. So then what will be there in the top of the stack, like that similar questions were asked. So how will you pop elements from stack and then storing in it? So I want to store these particular elements in stack. How will you store them? So whatever question he asked, you have to give answer to it, like scenario based questions. And moving to the next question, he asked about what is data science and what is AI. So theoretical stuff, he asked about theoretical stuff and what is deep learning. So basically I was not much aware of this, so I didn't touch this domain, but I actually mentioned general definitions of them. Again he is asking very deep down from that. So I mentioned I don't know much about this domain, so I was very comfortable with cyber security domain. So I mentioned the same thing. I told that I was not much aware of this, I know only little basics. So then he told that one should know each and every domain. So I told I know very basics of this, but I was very comfortable with cyber security domain. So whenever I told this, again he asked questions on cyber security domain itself. So he told to say what you have studied in cyber security, what are the things you have learned cyber security till now, explain me about cyber security. So all those things he asked. So I was confidently able to answer all those questions. Then he told so good, you are actually good in cyber security domain, like that he told. So be confident and explain what are the things you know to them, and don't sit silently, and try to answer each and every question, whether you are no or not, first answer it. You must be knowing very basic of it now, so at least answer that thing, so don't be silent. And then coming to the next question, he asked about round robin, and where will you use it. He asked to give real-time example, so I answered that question. And then here ends my interview. He finally asked if you have any queries. So basically I want to say that it was very long interview, and I can't say that for each and every person it will be like this. For some of my friends it took 20 minutes only, and asked very simple questions, so very basic questions. It will be based on your luck, based on the interviewer. Anyway, you have to be ready for the worst case, so as in my scenario. So many questions, he keep on asking many questions, that too based on your previous response. So be careful while answering particular question, so because next question will be based on your previous answer. So that's it guys, that's it about my Cognizant technical round interview. And in the next video I'll explain about HR interview. So don't worry much about HR interview if you cleared this technical interview, because HR interview was just a verification round. Only very few basic questions they will ask. So once you cleared this technical round, that means I can say that you are very near to get the offer letter. So all the best, guys. Thanks for watching the video, and if you need particularly any content, please comment. Also you can mail me if you have any doubts, so I am giving the mail ID in the description.